This is David Crosby, and I'm at the home of Richard and Jacqueline McGinnis in Edwards, Mississippi on April the 4th, 2015, and here to conduct an oral history interview for the Wells Church Oral History Project. And, before we proceed, could you say for the microphone that you've given your permission for us to make this tape?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, let's start with you, Jackie, if I may. You were born here in Mississippi in Picayune.
Picayune.
And
at Old Martin Sanatorium.
Could you give us a sense of your family background?
Well, my dad was a barber. He met mother at Keesler Air Force Base, and she was from Picayune, was working for the summer. And he married Mom, and her people were in Picayune, and that's how I came to be born in Picayune. And
you say they met at Keesler Air Force Base?
Yeah, my mom and dad.
Was he a Mississippian, or had
he was from Georgia.
He was from Georgia.
He was from Milan, Georgia.
So your mama took him home with her?
Yes. Yeah. And he used to say that he would rather be dead in Georgia than alive in Mississippi.
Oh my.
Wasn't that awful?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that was Daddy. He was a cross between Red Fox and Archie Bunker.
Well, barbershops were very important institutions.
Well, in Picayune, we couldn't go to the public library growing up. So his barbershop was like the library. He had reference materials there for children, and he had a string that went from one end of the barbershop to the other. And he would have magazines, put on there. And he also almost got in trouble with getting the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier. I think that was the name of the paper. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, he was a pretty brave old guy. He really was.
And tell me a little bit about your schooling.
Well, my schooling is crazy. I was the kind of person who was into, I liked everything. Everything. I got out of high school too young. I skipped a grade because of a test. And they kept making me take this test over and over, and I would make more. And the reason that the test was so easy was because if you've seen something once, you remember what you said then, you just go on, and do that. And so they wanted to put me from the 5th grade to the 7th grade, and Mother knew that, I was too immature, and still trying to get mature, by the way. And we they had the test the next year, and so I scored high. So I skipped the 7th grade. Thrown into the 8th grade. They wanted to beat me. The kids whom I left wanted to beat me, and the kids whom I joined wanted to also beat me. So I became a fighter. Mm-hmm. I've been one ever since. That's right.
With your fists?
I've been known.
Well, I like this. I'm learning all kinds of stuff.
But and it's about my family. Music, we were always, my family always were church musicians, choir directors, and Grandpa and Grandma used to do the shape note singing. You know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay, well, I never could get it together to what it was, but I couldn't get them together to give me, she divorced him, and he followed her from Beaver Meadow, Mississippi, to Picayune, but they wouldn't talk, so I couldn't get them together to really show me what it was. I always wanted to know. I'll find out before I die, hopefully.
They probably used the old Southern Harmony hymnal, which was a
Mm-hmm.
shape note hymnal.
Mm-hmm.
There were others too, but that was the most popular one.
My uncle, to this day, he's 88. No, he's 89. I think he's 89. Anyway, he still plays for several churches. Then I had another uncle who was a jazz pianist, and he influenced me very much. And I always wanted to love jazz music, and I always had to sing in a choir because I cannot remember not being able to have a venue someplace, to do something when I was a little kid. I thought nothing of it. I thought everybody did that.
Mm-hmm. So this was all in Picayune, or?
Picayune. Then I later started working in with a group called the Blue Notes, and we were better than the Supremes could think about being. Okay, we were really good. Because those girls, we had tight, wonderful harmonies, and we were talking about that last year. My mom passed, and one of the girls came by, two of them came by, and we were saying, we were so good, why couldn't we make it? So, I don't know. I think we went to different schools, and but anyway, I sang by myself a lot. I sang jazz in New Orleans, and I had... I sang jazz in New Orleans, up and down the coast, Slidell, Louisiana, and the parts of Louisiana I never knew existed. There was a place called Opelousas, and we did shows with the renowned Solomon Burke, and there was a group. When people would go on tours, they would come to Mr. Percy Stovall. I forgot the name of his agency, but he would have bands that would tour. He could book if somebody's coming down to tour. He got together the openings and all that. So we were quite known up and down the coast, and that was a lot of fun.
Did you feel a kind of tension between, say, jazz singing and church singing?
Oh yeah, they put me out of church.
Oh, they did.
Put me out. And what happened? My grandpa, on my mother's side, was very big on politics. He bragged about the fact he was very intelligent, the fact that he was an 8th grade scholar. And he said it with great pride. And he said, I can't understand why these children don't know what they're supposed to know, for the 8th grade. But anyway, Papa told them, said, well, if they're going to put these girls out of church, say, I got me a list here, and I'm going to start reading off things I know. And someone decided that the meeting needed to adjourn. And it was. So I was told I was put out, but I was never officially put out. It just said, I could not, be a part. And then they had the meeting and everything was all right. By then I didn't want to go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But
I love the Lord, now don't get me wrong. I really love the Lord and still do.
So did you stop singing in the church choir then?
Oh, yes, yes. Because by that time, I'd be too tired from singing in New Orleans. I couldn't open my poor little eyes.
Now, the venues where you would sing, were those mostly segregated venues?
Oh, yeah. That's why I believe that you can be born at a certain time to be a bridge. And I sang, they had the black water and the white water. And there were times for a dressing room, they want you to change in a room where they had to flower and all that. And so it was kind of rough. On the road, it was rough. When we had to go long distances, I was reading The Lady Sings the Blues, and I just became, I didn't know how deeply I had hidden that hurt in my heart. But we had to perform, they paid us, we got paid, but we could not like sit down and order a meal, anything, you know. So I decided I wouldn't have anything, and I would. My stomach would be growling. I refused to go to that back. Mm-hmm. So that's enough about me, don't you think? Talk to my husband.
Keep
So.
on going.
Well, sure, we could talk to your husband.
I have some other things I want to share,
Go ahead,
but I don't.
share.
I've been talking too long. It's
Oh,
time
no,
for my
you don't.
sweet
Yeah,
heart.
we'll get some interaction going in a little bit. Rich, you were born out in the West Coast, is that right?
That's correct.
Whereabouts?
Well, a place called Woodland. It's right near Sacramento.
Uh-huh.
My father worked for a sugar company. He had started the research part for the company. It was right in the middle of all the. Of course, the Central Valley of California is completely flat, and so they had a company that people raised sugar beets, no cotton, no cane, no sugar cane, and so there are ways. Turned out in Germany, other parts they do this as a regular form of their. So you take the beets, whatever we did to them, bring sugar out. Same sugar that you get from cane, but different.
I don't think I've ever seen a place that reminded me more of the Mississippi Delta than the Central Valley
That's
of
right.
California, around Sacramento,
That's
north of
right.
Sacramento.
That's right. The main difference is, at least when I was there, the people that worked the fields for the most part would come for a month and then go. Migrant workers, and there was a little section across the tracks, but they're called the labor camp, and I would stay there for a while before they moved on to the next spot. And we would see in school, we would see these kids. They'd come in for a month and then leave. And we'd see them the next year. They'd come back. Can you imagine getting an education under those circumstances? But one of the brightest students in the class was a Mexican girl who somehow had managed to stay, and she was quite good.
So most of these migrant workers were Mexicans?
Yeah, right. All the ones I ran across. Yeah.
And your schooling, could you tell me a little about that?
Well, I went to, I guess in 8th grade, my father got promoted to a position in San Francisco, which is where the headquarters of the company were, and so we lived in San Rafael, which is just north of, about 15 miles north of the Golden Gate, and went to school in high school, in middle, or 8th grade in high school there.
Is that Marin County?
In Marin County, yeah, right. And that's my favorite picture of Jackie is when we weren't married yet, and she's sitting in a bench in China Camp, which is. Anyway, from there I went to college at the University of California, Berkeley, which was where both my parents and my older sister had gone. And
Give me an idea of the time frame for this. When did you graduate high school?
I graduated from high school in 59. Is that right? Yeah, 59. And went to Berkeley until 63. That fall of 63 was when all the stuff really took. That was,
I was going to say that was just before
That's
the
right.
free speech movement.
But it was all. I mean, it was a wonderful place to be. My father was a dedicated Republican. He just couldn't see. He didn't like the fact that Roosevelt had taken us off the gold standard. What an importance that was. And he worked for all the Republican candidates, and they all lost. But when it came to Barry Goldwater, he stopped voting. He stopped. That was too far off for him. But what I liked about Berkeley, again, you come from that environment, and then you walked on the campus, and there would be people standing up on little platforms telling you about the latest political stuff. You walked onto the campus, and there was a line of tables, and fair play for Cuba. It was really a great place because you were exposed to things that you would not otherwise be aware of. So it definitely opened my eyes and ears, and I think certainly changed me, I guess, for life. And just,
But your mom's political views.
oh yes, they did not agree. She also went to Berkeley, and she was. They were actually. He was 12 years older than she, and somebody really wants to talk to us, but we'll let them stop. Supposedly, he married his brother's wife's sister. So it was, but at that time she was in high school and he was in graduate school. And it was almost like, some sort of
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Exactly. But I came. And 2 years later, they got married, and she went on to Berkeley and so forth as well. But I remember they had. She was one of 7 kids, and I remember one time. I actually was not there, but I heard about it. That she and her sister Lola, who was the one that was married to her husband George, had this bitter discussion about the war and the Vietnam War. And they didn't talk for 7 or 8 years.
Really?
It was that bad.
Well, what did you study at Berkeley?
I was in chemistry.
Chemistry.
Yeah.
Mm.
I look back on it, someone said, well, you're trying to do what your dad did. I said, I guess so. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I said, what should I do? He said, well, let's try that. I said, okay. I think I was pretty good at it, but looking back on it, I probably would have been wiser. But I think it's certainly been, I always liked teaching. I remember when I was in high school, this girl was having a little trouble, and I helped her, and I felt this good little feeling. So that kind of got me.
So you went on to graduate school and got.
Yeah, finished it. I was not the world's. I was the first advisee from a young professor who actually was. He was truly brilliant. As I found out many years later, I thought it was me. It was partly me, but it was partly he was not a very good mentor. He just let you off on your own. You were all supposed to be as bright as he was. I got involved in a lot of things there. I think I got to kind of in a strange way by, I had started in school summer of 1965. Harvard, Yale, and Columbia started a program called the Intensive Summer Studies Program, which was supposed to take students from African Americans and black schools and get them into graduate school. And I heard about the program from a janitor somewhere, and taught and wound up teaching in it. And but then after that, they said, well, we need to send people out because we can't really trust what these professors say at these schools. So I went for a couple of years, and then in '69, they said this Tougaloo place is going to be different from the other ones you've been to, and indeed they were correct. And Ernst Borinsky, who was a sociologist, a Holocaust survivor, was my host, and he was just amazing. And the faculty at that time were just fantastic. Gene Rosman's husband is probably the only one left of that group. And so... Just
expand that a little bit for me, would you? Something changed, you said that... in the program that...
what I was going to say is so I happened to be visiting Tougaloo, and I liked the students. They were very well prepared, and Dr. Borinsky was I said, but what happened since then, of course, is that the civil rights period is over, and
I was thinking about the transition from Harvard to Tougaloo.
Believe it, well, I'll tell you. Harvard was a lot of brilliant folks, and there were a few demonstrations against the war. In fact, I think a big one was happening when I happened to be coming down here. But I really found, in certain respects, it was more Berkeley-like because of the breadth of the people that you met, and it really was very liberating for me.
Well, now maybe we can talk about how the two of you met.
Well, I do want to say that I was involved in the anti-war movement too, before we go on to the greatest love story.
But slow motion though.
So I got involved. I was teaching French and English at which is now a subsidiary of Hines Junior College, and I
Was that Utica?
at Utica, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And I found it to be it was weird. First I was too young, had 2 children, and it was my first teaching job. I think I was 19. 2 children. That shows you what happens when you get skipped. Don't let your children ever get skipped. And so anyway, I got involved with the anti-war movement, and I had some things that happened to me. They tried to get me fired, and so there were these. I won't mention these men's names, but I remember them in their little brown cars. Used to follow us around, and I didn't know how to drive, but whoever I caught a ride with, and still don't drive, but these gentlemen would just come and hang around and look. So it got to where my babies, they were little ones. They said, "Oh, there are your friends in the brown car." So one day I went out to the brown car and told them, "Come on in." And we talked and talked, and they wanted me to. I didn't know that someone would actually ask you to go undercover, to work with them. I thought that was the most horrible thing. So I refused, of course, to do that. And
Well, did they identify themselves at that point?
yeah, they later they did to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, later on, it was much later. I mean, I was watched, and all I did was make a little speech or two every now and then, and I got involved because I saw people leaving my classes, and then I hear somebody died. So I got to be a part of that. I got to do something. So I'd been a part of civil rights voter registration things. I found out about the extreme poverty in Hines County. My children, they were little, and I would take them. They would drop a group of us off, and then we'd fan out, and go. And I saw some things, they looked like they were third world. I know that's a bad term. Let's just say underdeveloped places. It was pretty rough. And it just made me, I did things down in this area. I knew of Edwards because I used to come down to a place called Mount Beulah and do workshops in black literature. And it was something was not right. I saw little evidence of children caring about anything literary or wanting to read or even talk about their feelings. A few. And while I was at the college, and I taught some extremely bright people, one of the former mayors who was one of my students, and I found that a lot of my students remembered me as I later came to Edwards and got involved with Rich. Later on, I found out that I had influenced more people than I thought, and they told me crazy things I used to say and do. I was so embarrassed. You can't just.
Truth comes.
It's like truth just came. I would just say how I felt. And in the faculty meeting, I remember being at a faculty meeting, and this man came down, and it'll be easy to look him up. I won't say his name because I always stay in trouble. He said, how we were doing, just fine. Well, I got everybody was just fine, but we had nothing, just fine, And I said, well, he said, well, for a Negro school, this, it was a really good school. And I said, sir, one of the things I need to ask you for my Negroes, I said, I'm using that term because I want us to be, able to understand each other. We need a language lab. I said, it would help so much. And everybody started whispering and going on and said, oh, Jack is going to get lynched. He's crazy. So what he said was, them that makes the most racket sometimes get what they want. Something like that. That's what he said, something like that. And but anyway, I knew I was on my way out, probably out, and it was hard getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting children ready. They had a wonderful daycare facility there on the campus, and it was very difficult. And of course, nobody wants to give you a ride if you got 2 little children along with you. But we trudged on. We made it, you know. So, but anyway, that's
About what period of time was this? When
this was around 1968, 69, 70. Yeah.
Did you ever run across Dr. Walter Washington when you were?
He hired me.
He hired you.
He hired me.
He hired me too.
Wow. Well, let me tell you what he told me. The mayor came to a Christmas party here a few years ago. He said, Ms. McGinnis, he phrased it Ms. Dito, and I was widowed in 1989, and he said, Dr. Washington told me, you don't have no Miss Dito here now to come in the office and cry because you don't have your tuition money and act a fool and cry. Said we're gonna put you out if you don't have your money this time. You know, he was at Alcorn then, and then he said, yeah, she's not here. She can't do anything for you. I never knew. First of all, I didn't know that he paid me any attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just thought maybe I didn't know that he had made an exception in that man's case. Anyway, he's the mayor here now.
Well,
Yeah.
he just got.
Oh no, you're right.
That's right. We
Poor fella.
just replaced him.
Yes, he's replaced now. But
He was
he
in 5
tried.
years,
He
but-
tried to do. It's very hard to do things in this area. It's very, very difficult
Mm-hmm.
because we have nothing. We have no industry to speak of. There isn't much to do.
The eggplant down the road.
Mm.
And, I'm sure there used to be some sort of a furniture thing here, and
I don't know, but I just know I thought about how I would just get in trouble, just jumping off into things, and just as a matter of fact, I remember the first Charlie Horwitz. He was with the civil rights movement, and Charlie said, "Jackie, you need to come on down. We need you down here for something." So I went on down. And my husband was always disgusted with me, first husband. He said, well, yeah, I heard you trying to make history. I said, what? He said, weren't you at that news conference where there was an announcement about gay rights? It was the first time anybody had gotten together to say anything about a gay right. And so he always thought me odd in many ways. But I was there, and Mr. Sandifer was the spokesperson, and he said, "Do you know everybody thinks that you're gay?" I said, "Well, you can, understand people, the humanity, without dealing with the sexuality." I said, I am not trying to announce my gayness, which I don't have it, And but anyway, that was a big stink. But I always was trying to get involved with things and always trying really hard. Mm-hmm. I always said to myself, just because you don't have a car and because you don't know how to drive will not keep you from being a citizen, and saying
Mm-hmm.
what you feel.
Okay. Well, can we move on then to how you met Rich and what happened?
Okay. It's going to make it seem as though I'm bragging, but I'm not.
Okay.
I had this baby that started talking, saying words at 6 months. I said, how's mommy's baby? She said, just fine. I almost dropped her. Just fine. Oh my God. So I called, I called the pediatrician. I said, the baby's supposed to be able to talk at 6 months. Oh no, all mothers think their babies are geniuses. Oh no. And so let it go. So by the time Dee Dee was 9 months old, she was getting me in trouble. She told a lady, she said, we'll just call her Mrs. Johnson, for a name, because the lady's still living and very much alive and feisty. She said, Mrs. Johnson is your other face in your purse? Because mother said you had two faces. So she was that kind of baby. Okay, this just to give you just one idea of how this child was. Then, she thought, we could tell you stories all day about this baby. But she, I worked real hard. I was director of a program at Tougaloo College called Team Counseling when I left Utica. I came there and it was a place where my college students went into the homes of children who could not read or needed some help or something was needed to break the chain. And we would send two into a home. Well, I worked constantly during the month of June. I did not work. And so I'm in the faculty cafeteria. Rich came
Like
in.
April or March, something like that.
It was about May. It was about May because I didn't have the 30
Okay.
days or so to help you get it together. So he got this money, $1 million grant.
It was more like 100,000 a year, but something like that.
Well, it was $1 million to me, but he this was to help students so we would get more scientists and doctors. This baby came from got up. I mean, she just ran all over Tougaloo. She thought she was a student because is it my turn to keep the baby? My turn, and they had taught her all kind of crazy stuff, and she just was just grown. And she told Rich, she said, "Come over here and sit with us and eat." She got up from our table. Well, I didn't know she was going. I know she knew him, but she didn't. She said, people don't eat alone, and so she brought him over to our table. And you just obeyed Dee. You just did whatever she said.
Right.
And so he brought his stuff over and we were eating. And he started talking about what kind of work, he asked what kind of work I did. And I just told him how difficult it was to watch, to know how many children were not being taken care of, the needs weren't being met. So anyway, Rich said, I just got a grant. And I'm not sure how to organize this for kids to get more scientists and doctors. So I said, "Oh, that would be fun." I said, "I would love to do something like that." And he said, "Really?" So we just started talking. And I was telling him things he needed to do. I was great at organizing and getting stuff done because it didn't matter. You still had to go through certain kinds of things. You had to, get your goals in order and everything, and your rules, especially if you're going to bring kids on a college campus. And that is how we met. I worked for him for years. I was quite married. He never once had one eyeball to look, I looked differently then. And but he never said anything. I never thought about him as anything because we used to play good cop, bad cop. And he said, "I pay you enough to do all the dirt." He wanted to be Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, with the students and have all the love. And I had to, be horrible. I remember one 4th of July. Richard McGinnis wouldn't let those children go home. Got them some bologna sandwiches and had a little lunch, gave them a bag. So y'all should get together and get to know each other more. They didn't care about that. So he told them, that it was my rule and that was it. I had to take the fall. They got outside of my window of the office and did verse after verse of horrible things about me, I couldn't get mad. I mean, I thought it was hilarious, because I needed that little money. I really did. So I was about to fuss with Rich or anything. I just took it. Just took the pay. So I worked for him for almost a decade in just a summer program. And then I would go back to directing my own program, during the year. And I just remember he knew my children. Of course he knew Dee Dee because she had introduced herself, And Monique he would let them come to work with me. I didn't have family here. And I remember my children having frogs. And I remember letting them go on a trip. I remember my son asking one of the researchers at a medical facility, did they feed the animals that were on the what do you call the thing that goes around where they have the
and we talk about the
come on, you guys.
Treadmill.
Treadmill, that's exactly what it was. He said, well, other than giving them a life that looks like black people's lives, he said, do you feed them, you know, ham hocks, I mean, different, you know. And I thought, I said, oh my God, how blessed I am. How very blessed for my children to have been in situations, you know, and not being put out, you know, or maybe they'll get somewhere and play, you know. My kids always had me to talk to. They always had people around. We shared our home with kids who didn't have things, and from other countries we sometimes had people. So they knew a lot about the world.
Were you living on Tougaloo's campus?
No, we had a home.
Yeah. What about you, Rich?
At that time, I lived on the campus until 1981 when I bought this house.
I see. So what changed?
Oh, okay. So back to the romance. Okay, what happened was the death. So in 1989, Julian Dito died, and we had been together since I was in high school. So I was really, I think I was 43 when he died, and you know, you're still not. I was at a place where America doesn't know what to do with, you know, you can't go out and shake, you know, and then you didn't want to just turn into a nun type. So I said, best thing I can do is just commit everything over to God and let Him fight my battles. Well, I had also been a little bit in the Black Power thing. I thought I was Angela Davis when he met me, the afro, you know, everything, you know, out there. So, and I was known as being very radical. But I knew this man's heart. I knew him. He never thought about me as a person. I never thought about him as a person, you know, of possible interest, anything like that. And he had a student was staying over with him. He said, you know, he said, we need Mrs. McGinnis, Miss Dito back. We need her. Because I had left and had gone down and taught music down on the coast, and a woman had fallen out drunk under the red light, and they needed a teacher right away. And I was taking my guitar to be restrung. The man said, you play that thing, girl? And he had on a red plaid shirt. And looked at my lips, I was getting ready just to read him and tell him about him, so called me a girl. And what happened, my mouth wouldn't move. I got ready and nothing would come out. This is God. Knowing I was getting ready to act a plumb fool at Picayune, Mississippi, you know, at Werline's music shop. So finally, I realized God is saying to me, do not act a fool. This could be a blessing. Well, he was a principal of the school. You play that thing? I said, well, yeah, I play. He said, you been to college? I said, I went. Then he said, well, just play something for me. So I looked at, well, I thought everybody loves Willie Nelson. I know I did. So I broke out with You Were Always on My Mind. Oh, I thought I was crooning. And after a while, I forgot I was mad. I was singing. Music does that to you, just takes away negativity. He said, can you start to work tomorrow? Come on by here and I'm going to tell you a little thing about the job. And I had 5 choirs. Had never been a choir director before in my life. I was 2 steps ahead of the children. We had a magnificent concert. Just magnificent. But anyway, so then after I left there, I came on back. I had my husband and I were on a break. And came on back and I heard that Dr. McGinnis had his thing, because we welcomed Dr. McGinnis. He had everything, you know, was still going along. And I started teaching. I had, from there, was thrown into another choir teaching situation. But I had to teach French 1, French 2. I had to teach creative writing. I think I had 4 or 5 preps. And it's against the law to do that kind of stuff to people, but the kids needed. Anyway, I did that, and
Where
then
was that?
this was at I worked at Flora High School, and then I worked at Madison Central. And I got all kind of good stories about Madison Central. We don't have time for me right now. I'm gonna roll on and tell you back to Richard. So he came up and he said he called, and we said we're gonna get together and talk as to what we're gonna do with some ideas I might have. So we went to the Iron Horse Grill
Right.
before it burned.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which time?
this
It burned out 3 times.
Really?
this was probably
Well, it would have been in
the third time. This was the third time it burned. Okay, so then we're sitting there eating, and people were just looking. A woman dropped a potato in her lap. She was looking at us so hard, and he had a red Mazda with the top down. We were just, and my children were terrified that we were going to be shot, or lynched. And but he was like Mr. Magoo, and I was just like, Mr. Magoo, just going right on, just grinning and just talking, not even thinking. We got to be we were respecting each other's brains, but I never thought. I said, "Oh no, Lord," I said, "I know that this is not what you have planned for me. No, in the name of Jesus." Anyway, I went to Mama's down in Picayune. He drove me down there, and he said, because Mama had seen him a couple of times at Thanksgiving, but I just invite people that I know that could handle some more friendship.
You invited me to Thanksgiving a couple of times.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So Mama said, "I know you all in the closet." I said, "No, we're not in the closet." No, I said, "He's just a friend, and he's a good person." So then he took me down to see about her, and she said, "Jackie, you ought to come on out that closet. Say, it doesn't feel good to grow old alone." And she said, and my dad died kind of young too, and so she was in her prime of life too when he died. And she said she didn't want that for me. She didn't want me to be alone, and that I need to just start dating. I said, "It's not like that. He didn't want to like me. I didn't want to like him." I cried all the way. I remember
She wouldn't tell me why.
I was just crying. Used up a box of Kleenex. He stopped at a stage, got me another box. Kept on crying. So when he put me out, he said, "I think I know why you're crying. Let's just wait and see what happens. Let's just see what happens." So I think we had our first date. No, we had a date. He had taken me out to a movie to see Forrest Gump, and somebody broke the windows out of his car.
That's right. Right up at right.
And then
right
the
up-
police
that's
said,
right.
"Wonder why they knocked him out." He said they didn't take anything. I was so mad. Glass was everywhere. I said, "Take me home." It was supposed to be dinner, a movie, and then to dinner. I said, "No, get me from this side of town. I don't want them putting me back in the hood. Take me home now." And so he said, "No, I promised you a movie and dinner. That's what we're going to have." And when we got to this place,
At the Metro.
it was at the
At the
Metro
Jackson,
Center, but
yeah.
it was Tuesdays.
Yeah, that's right.
Tuesdays.
It was there.
Ruby Tuesday.
Ruby Tuesdays. And then the man said, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's so late." I said, see, you see, that's why, I want to go back to the house. Anyway, then he looked at me and he said, "Oh, yeah, come on, we can do something." And then that gave me maybe some hope because my kids didn't like that I was even, going out with him, just having dinner, or just, they didn't like it at all. They were afraid for me. And so anyway, that is how we started. And then I started back teaching for him. And we just, I don't know when it happened, I really don't know. I try to think when the bug hit. I don't remember. It was kind of. It
just kind of happened. Just
kind of happened.
Well, maybe we ought to get Rich's side of this story.
Oh wow!
When did it happen?
Wow. I figured I'm about the same way as Jackie on that one. It just kind of.
We're so alike.
Yeah, that's right.
Just
And you just absolutely amazing,
oh God.
crazy, wonderful person.
Well, anyway,
Let me ask you something. This kind of was the music a bond for the
It
two of
was.
you?
Now,
Do you think?
We both are interested in music, although I was raised totally classical,
Right.
totally, and I had become interested in early music when I was in graduate school, I think, and but when Jackie and I started going places and stuff, I realized there was another whole kind of music that my father wanted. He had taken piano lessons, and he had played piano for silent movies, but his teacher apparently told him that he should not play anything but classical music, and so, being a good son, for far too many years I believed him, but when I've heard Jackie sing several times, and Lord, there's another whole world there, and yeah, that's right, that's right.
Well, let's move ahead now to talk about the ostensible subject of this oral history. How did each of you get involved with Wells Church?
We did it together. I think you probably made this. You made the selection. I had been.
no, I got kicked out of my church in a nice way. They
right.
said some of our big members don't like it that you're, that you're, when it's your time to minister, do the music ministry, and so we just feel that it would be, better if we just sit you down, for a while, and see what we can do. This was right after the wedding. Well, a lot of the church.
This was related to their objection to your being in
Yes. Yes.
mixed
yes.
race
Yes.
relationship.
And
you remember that there was something was supposed to happen that they were supposed to have at the reception. Was it we didn't have any chairs or something like that?
oh, let me tell you what happened there. We had 36 people in our wedding party.
Everybody wanted to be in her wedding. I had a couple. No, but yeah, right.
But anyway, well, they all had escorts. The pastor kept telling women to bring their things to clean the church on that Saturday morning of my wedding, and I would tell them, I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "That's when I'm getting married." Next Sunday, same thing. Next Sunday, same thing. That actually happened. And I don't know if he just didn't remember or what. Then he set up a revival that was in concert with a predominantly white church who previously owned that church that was bought. And we couldn't find any chairs in the rehearsal. They told us we had 1 hour. And you talking about we were like soldiers. We just everything was just fine. And I even cooked my own rehearsal down. I was so ignorant. I didn't know, I was so used to working and doing it. If you got to get done, you got to do it. I about did. My doctor was in the thing. He said, "Jackie, you're walking funny." I said, "My back is killing me, doc." He said, "Sit down. Don't do anything else." I sat down and I looked, and everybody else was sitting on the floor. The chairs disappeared. The use of a limousine from a service disappeared. A lot of things disappeared. But we went right on. Rich sang to me in the wedding. I sang to him. People were clapping. Old folks were looking like they had hope one more time. It was beautiful. And that night, he had special music done.
We had over here. We had a friend of mine had a what was it about? I can't remember but there was some. It was about an old man getting married, and
and his soprano was wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
She was gorgeous, wonderful. Anyway, so we had a big reception, but at the Baptist churches you can't have things that people normally have at receptions. Booze or anything like that. So we. I had my little children's
at your
choir.
house. There was one at your house.
Not at my house. It was at this house.
But there was something.
No, nothing. I was supposed. People thought I was supposed to come home and entertain them.
Okay.
I said, I'm a bride.
You're right.
They had my nerves so bad. I didn't even know. I hadn't even packed. I've been cooking, doing this, doing that.
Your chicken?
Look, and then had a 5-minute rehearsal on my song with a guy that used to play for me a long time. He came down from Oklahoma. 5-minute rehearsal. Then back.
Wonderful.
Oh God, it was a glorious
It really was.
time. It was just wonderful, and I just knew what love. I realized you can't put ages and races and stuff. You just don't know. And I kept saying, I went to the Bible. I said, oh Lord, I said, please help me. I said, I just don't know what to do. My son boycotted the wedding. My only son. But right then, 2 more little boys go, oh, we'll be in it. Mm-hmm. Godson, oh yeah, no problem. So it was just, to me, it's the prettiest wedding I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if it's because it was ours. But it was wonderful. We had a lady from PRM. She was from England, and she read "How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Count the Ways." Oh, that woman read that poem. I tell you, it was nice. It was really nice. So we have been happy. Well, I've been pretty happy.
I've been happy too.
You've been happy? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But
we
you did find resistance to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To the idea of your being
Oh yeah.
married.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't care. We were just going, just grinning, so you get with the program. See, I can tell I probably don't care how you feel one way or the other. I'm gonna be nice to you. But if you got a problem, that's a personal thing. You have to deal with.
Well, I mean,
And we went right on.
You should tell her about your first meeting my mom.
Lord Jesus. Oh. Well,
we went out to California for Christmas time. My father had passed already, and go ahead.
well,
There were these little things that.
I don't know whether that'll take too long. But let me just say that
Your daughter's offered to fly you out.
fly me back home. I was not what she had in mind for her son. And he had waited so long to marry because he was 54. Were you 54 when we married? Because I was going to be 50 in 2 weeks.
55, something like that.
Yeah. But anyway, everybody saw a change in him. And the change came because I'm touchy-feely, So he was not touchy-feely. And he hugged his sister. She said she almost fainted because he had never hugged her before. And he just was different, They say, I don't know. I just knew my boss, McGinnis, and my friend, McGinnis, So anyway, we just went on. They said it was going to take place, and she told me, her opinion about some things and promised me there won't be any children. Promised me. And then she went on and on about how hard life was for somebody who married a Chinaman, and how miserable they. She brought him up about 13 times.
He never got married.
Yeah, how awful.
Biracial.
Yeah, and so she decided. I mean, we were old. We're not, really thinking along those terms, But anyway, she had. Later, she came to appreciate me. I just went right on. When she came to visit us, we treated her like a queen, not like I was treated, And because I was ready to go on back home because I knew I had a temper, and I didn't want to be in jail in California, you know. So I just asked the Lord to calm me down, you know, and He did. And I put myself in her place at her age. And I had to realize you have to deal with people where they are. You have to deal with what is given to you to deal with, and somebody's got to have some compassion and some sense, and you know, and move on. But later, everything got to be quite all right.
Well, you had some problems with the people in your church where you were leading choir. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, yes.
so when that started to happen, you went looking for another place to go to church, or?
Absolutely.
I left when I thought that because I mean I started working and built up things, and you know, really built. I was knowing you could take a choir, and the Lord could just help me to have a gift for communicating that, you know, with my choir members. And I left after they made it how things were going to be, you know. They didn't say get out, but the fire was so hot till you jumped right on out that skillet, and I jumped into wells. I had a friend who had been my secretary once at Tougaloo, who was there. Her name was Miss Maggie Bass, and she was a very, very intelligent woman. And we went there, and then we knew John Garner and Marguerite. Then
I lived next to them for 10 years on the campus.
I see.
And we knew some people who were there. And for us, there was no place else we could go. And then we met other couples who had been put out of churches. My friend Diane and Dr. Tony, her husband, had been just made to feel unwelcome, asked not to come back, really. And so it was the only place that we could go. Plus, you know, Keith preached love and understanding and acceptance, and plus he was from New Orleans and Bay St. Louis, you know, places where near my home, you know. And I remember I had surgery, my first surgery. There was second surgery. He came over, cooked red beans and rice, you know. I mean, you just don't find that. You just don't find it. And he would come to the Christmas parties. And once he said to me, he said, Jackie, if Jesus had to choose a Christmas party to come to, I believe it'd be at your house. Because it was looking like the United Nations, you know, with all the... Richard is science dean at Tougaloo College. So, of course, we have a lot of people who are not Americans in the sciences, you know. And we just met a lot of good folks, you know. And then, of course, I went around and found out people who needed a party. And one man from here, a white gentleman, became very upset because she let a couple of the bombs come in into her party. It was not my party, it was just a party, a Christmas party. So we sing, I cooked my head off, fresh greens from the field, gumbo, pots, big old, and we fed, and I baked, and friends would come in, and what can I do? It was just a wonderful time. And so we are known, I guess, through entertaining a lot. Oh, my students, each summer they can write down what they wanted to eat. And I said, if we had a certain quote, the grades were looking okay, I would cook whatever you say. And I did it like a fool. I've been doing it for 19 years. Anyway, and then word gets around, so people know about this house as a house of love and just togetherness. And we don't do a whole lot of entertaining intimately like we want to, because you can't invite one person, not invite the other person, not invite, and it's just been a very, very wonderful marriage in that I got to meet people from other countries and could practice, your language things with them. it's interesting when the French come, they didn't want to speak French. They said, "Oh, we're trying to work on our English," you know. But anyhow, that's about it.
What, besides the acceptance that you felt at Wells and through Keith particularly, were there other aspects of the Wells experience that are important to you in one way or another?
Well, they used to ask me to sing at Wells Fest. I always enjoyed doing that. And they had a coffee house, and I used to bake my chess squares. I was going to make some today, but I decided that I wouldn't go overboard, you know, with sweets on you. But we got involved with that, and they asked me to write something, you know, for publication, for in-house things,
The
Lenten season, and something
There was
else,
another one, too.
Christmas time, you know. So, and what else have I done? Okay, we do things like Rich and I help people. We had to learn how to do it, and how we learned how to stop when it's time up. When okay, you've had your turn now. We've done everything. Now you got to grow up. You can't, you know, keep being breastfed. You got to go on out and get where you can get your chicken, a drumstick or something. You know, you got to move on. But we've done that, and we've helped many people in many ways. We are Rich, and I think that we have a big S for suckers tattooed on our foreheads.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we have learned that there is a limit. And,
Yes.
Well, has Wells helped you to
I think
deal with that, or?
I was at the Good Friday service last night, and a guy came in dragging a suitcase with him during the middle of the service. I wondered what was going to happen, right? And everybody treated him just as if he was anybody else. What I think I really like about Wells is the inclusiveness, and the fact that it's that there is room for all kinds of beliefs and levels of belief that I think is rare, particularly in this society of I got all the answers.
So everyone welcome all the time.
I think that's basically true. And to the extent possible, I'm amazed. I visited it once 3 or 4 years before Jackie and I got together, and I noticed it right then.
Did something just happen, Richie? Oh, okay. Well, we have kept you well beyond what's reasonable. You've been very generous, and I'd certainly like to express my own appreciation for the way you've shared this with us, and I'm sure that the people who encounter this interview in the future will be very much impressed and interested as I am. So thank you very much.
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
talking
you.
to us.
Yes, thank you for finding us worthy of being talked to.